as a coach, if you've never been in these spaces, if you didn't lose your mom at 17, if you didn't fail your second year in university, if you didn't have these challenges, how do you coach other people out of them? You know, it's getting at them the resilience that taught you the pathway, the mindset, the blueprint to guide and help people achieve things and ever dream were possible for themselves.
Absolutely. And you're right, Scott, because when I look at some of the most successful stories behind people's success, what you will find in common with a lot of people is periods of pain, periods of struggle, periods of challenge, where they didn't know they were going to make it, yet they found something somehow to navigate themselves through it and out of it. I think the author Haruki Murakami said it best when he said, the purpose of the storm is in transforming who you are from the person that walked into the storm to the person that walked out of it. That is the purpose of every storm. Now, if somebody hasn't gone through a storm or a setback or challenge, then if I'm coaching them, for me, it is to transform their mindset to embrace the unknown and to embrace the uncomfortable. Because otherwise, what's the point of living a life if you've never challenged yourself? If you've never had to grow out of your comfort zone? And this is why I think it was, I can't remember which investor it was, but one of the investors on the TV show Shark Tank said that I would rather invest in somebody who has had to struggle, who has had to climb, who has had to learn resilience, who has faced setback after setback after setback, than someone who has had everything laid out for them on the silver platter, because they don't know what it's like to face a challenge. They don't know how to brush themselves off and come back again because they've never been there. They've never been down in the dirt. And so what I try and do is to ignite that motivation inside of them to move out of their comfort zone by highlighting the pain of not making any change. Because pain can be a great force, a great catalyst for us to do something different. So as an example, one of the pains I like to create to instill some inspiration inside of someone is the pain of getting to the end of your life and being filled with regret. You know, being filled with regret of not doing the things that deep down you knew you could have done, but that you didn't take action on any of them for whatever reason. And so one of the questions I might ask somebody is, how much longer will you avoid doing what you are capable of in order to continue with what you are comfortable doing? It's a question that makes people reflect on the fact that they are saying no to their potential. And you can never get that time back. Once today is done, today is gone forever. Are you going to make use of today? Or are you going to get to the end of your life and live this tragic scenario of living as if you are never going to die and then dying having never really lived? Is that the sort of life you want to live? Now, what happens is that when we can start to create this pain that will occur if you do not take any action today, if you don't own your future, for me, that starts to create a shift inside of somebody. That starts to create that shift. And all we can ever do, Scott, is to plant those seeds. You know, there's a saying in coaching that you can't change somebody that doesn't want to be changed. All we can ever do is plant seeds. Let them sort of germinate, if you will. Let them ruminate on the thoughts that we leave with them. And when they're ready, they're going to take those first steps.
Yeah, it's powerful, and it's a powerful question. I mean, when you start to look back on your life and you evaluate it, I've worked with a lot of people towards the end of their life, and they tell us things that they haven't told their children. They tell you things that they haven't told, anybody sometimes. And they get to the point where they're really struggling with some of the decisions that they made or that they didn't make. And so many people listening to this podcast, it's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast, is that I get to talk to people that think differently, that challenge us all to think differently. And there's another part, and I just happened last night. I went to dinner with some friends, and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, I walk in, I'm leaving the restaurant actually," and he goes, "Hey, I love the podcast. I love listening. I haven't talked to this guy in years." And He's listening to a message because we have great guests who are challenging people to think differently, to really live that life and define what freedom means to them, and then move forward into that better future. And the last point I'll make is, sometimes all it takes is a seed of someone believing in you where you didn't believe in yourself, and that it's there, but you just need someone else to spark it, to say, hey, here's a question, have you thought about this? And they often will. That cultivates something in somebody, in the right people, that makes them do something. And I think that's what you're talking about when you really are saying that you got to plant that seed.
Absolutely. I plant the seed if they have the humility to be open to insights from other people, to be open to the influence of other people who mean well for them. What happens is they can then take action if they're committed to seeing that through. And that's when life truly transforms. Life transforms when you do something different. When I look back on my journey, Scott, I was always focused on trying something new, because once I lost my mum and then my grandfather a few years later, it really brought home how fragile life is. I knew at those points that there was no fear to be had. I'm going to die at some point anyway. This isn't a rehearsal here. Let's just put my ask out there. Let's just put myself out into the world. Let's be bold with my ask. Let's think big. Because what's the worst that can happen? Somebody says no, something doesn't work out, you go again, you try again. But what you're developing every time you come back again and again and again is experience and wisdom. That's the reward for putting yourself out there. You're never going to get it right the first time. I always say to the clients I work with, your first of anything is going to suck. Guaranteed it's going to suck. But you've got to get over those first few in order to get to your 20th, your 21st, and your 22nd, where people start to take notice. It's what you do in the dark where no one is watching, if you will, that eventually puts you in light where everyone is watching. That work that you have to do in order to get where you want to be is the process. It's part of the game. And you've got to find your own way to enjoy it. If you see it as a chore, guess what? You're not going to be consistent. You're going to give up just when the going gets tough. But if you find a way to make it enjoyable and fun, what happens is that you'll want to show up each and every day to apply those habits, to make those choices that will eventually get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's so true. Mindset is so powerful. Number one, a no is never going to feel like the pain you felt losing your mother and
Mm,
your grandfather.
yeah.
So when you can tell yourself, I've felt the worst pain I can feel, and
Mm,
this is not even in the ballpark. You saying
yeah.
no to me, or not showing up on a podcast, or somebody not liking like that's just part of life. But
Mm,
but
mm,
pain, once you get comfortable with knowing what it feels like and how to move forward, there's a major
mm,
progress. And the other point that I really think is valuable to pull out of that is, when you're doing something you don't love and it's part of the process. Number one, in talking with a lot of professional athletes, talking with people who have been highly successful in something that everybody wants to be successful with, almost all of the athletes that I've spoken to, all of the best, were in love with the process. They were in love with the practice. They were in love with the day in and the day out, the grind, not the result. The result came because of the practice. The result came because of the work that they love doing. But if you don't like the work that goes into it, and I struggle with this because I'm results oriented. So early on in my career, it was all about what was showing up at the end of the month in the production award. It was all about the payoff and what we could accomplish and the pathway. Even playing soccer as a young man and not going anywhere far with it, but I loved games. I never loved practice. And I've got two sons, both of which are going to play at high levels and are already playing at high levels. But the
mm.
love of the practice is what separates so many. And the way I got around it when I was the last thing I'll say is, when I was brand new in business, I remember this. I I had to knock on doors when I first started in business, and
Mm,
I hated knocking on doors, but I wasn't scared of it. I just didn't like the rejection.
mm,
And
mm,
so I would set a goal for the week, and I would basically create a game like baseball where, one no equaled this, and a face-to-face connection equaled that, and an appointment was equal to
mm.
this many points. So it was like a grand slam. And I made up these games. I made up these stupid games that every week I could assess myself. So I was also giving myself grace that if I made these
Mm,
obscure goals that I was going to talk to X number of people and I didn't hit it, but I also had a really great week, I was shortchanging
mm,
myself. So I had to find a way to level myself up and stay in the game. And I think so much of what you're saying is not only true, but
mm.
it's effective, efficient, and proven. If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.